Has your business been affected by COVID-19? The Virgin Islands Small Business Development Center is available to assist entrepreneurs and small businesses in the U.S. Virgin Islands. The VI SBDC is sustained by the University of the Virgin Islands and the U.S. Small Business Administration and collaborates with local agencies to support the small business community. The VI SBDC is nationally accredited and provides free consulting, business education training, and technical assistance. Attend workshops with subject matter experts from both the public and private sector. From idea generation to exit strategies, the staff at the VI SBDC is ready to assist you. Now is the time to contact them, so don't wait. Call or email them to find out how they can help your business grow and succeed.
Welcome to the VI SBDC Webinar Tuesdays with SBA. We have collaborated to bring you this series of webinars to help USVI small business owners further connect and benefit from what the SBA PR and USVI district office has to offer. Just a friendly reminder to please place your questions in the chat and they will be addressed by the SBA team either in the chat or during the discussion towards the end. I want to introduce Wayne Huddleston, our Senior Area Manager. So Lisa, go ahead and share your screen so we can see the PowerPoint, and then Wayne, you can go ahead and begin with the presentation. Thank you.
All right, thank you for the introduction, Sharika. Again, my name is Wayne Huddleston. I'm the Senior Area Manager for SBA here in the Virgin Islands. Lisa Shamli-Akui is also my colleague here in the Virgin Islands, our Outreach and Marketing Specialist. She has put together a good presentation for us today. As you know, many of you have joined us on these weekly seminars. We'd like to give a presentation on a particular SBA topic and then answer all of your questions regarding that. And then we, of course, we stay online. We make sure we preserve enough time at the end to answer any of your questions. And then on the topic, but also anything related to SBA. So this week, we are going to talk, we decided this holiday week to do a presentation on where we are with our COVID programs, as some of those are going to be nearing an ending point. So we want to give you an update on where we are with those, how they've been taken advantage of here in the Virgin Islands, and answer any questions you have on those, because while some have already expired, there are a few others that have not, but we are certainly nearing the end of these programs. I think thankfully, we're starting to get to a point where we're emerging from the worst parts of the pandemic and their impact on our businesses here. So we're going to go over program highlights, and I'm going to give you some of those. And then Lisa is going to dive into the meat of some of these programs on economic injury disaster loans, Paycheck Protection Program, and forgiveness. And then I'm going to talk about just how those programs have manifested here in the territory and where we are with the status on those. And then, like I said, we're going to preserve time at the end to answer any questions you have on any of those programs, plus anything related to SBA. So next slide, please, Lisa. So first, I want to highlight the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, commonly referred to as EIDL. And in this case, the COVID-19 EIDL program. This was authorized very early on in the pandemic. It was modified a bit by Congress. There was a reduction in the maximum amount that could be provided, but it has gone through several iterations since the pandemic began. So we want to give you a short update on those. Right now, as of November 18th, more than 3.8 million EIDL loans totaling just short of $300 billion have been approved and will remain, this program remains open. So we've had all this approved so far, and it will go until December 31st, 2021. I have seen no indication that that program will be extended beyond that point. So if you have not already received an economic injury disaster loan, I encourage you to consider that and consider applying before that deadline, because your opportunity to receive this particular economic injury disaster loan for effects suffered as a result of COVID-19 will expire after December 31st. I don't expect that to be renewed. And if you've already received one, then you cannot receive a second one. You may be able to receive increases or what we call targeted advance of these, but you cannot receive a second COVID EIDL loan. So if you haven't applied initially, you should do so by December 31st. There have been some recent changes. As I mentioned, there's been several changes over the course of the pandemic. One of the most recent ones occurred on September 8th. And they did a number of things. One was to increase the maximum loan cap to $2 million. $2 million is the statutory limit that was set by Congress for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program years ago. And then when the pandemic hit, that was reduced down to 500,000. I think actually it was first initially 150,000, then it was 500,000, and then it was reduced or restored back to its $2 million cap. And that took effect on September 8th. The use of funds can include payment or prepayment of non-federal debt incurred at any time, past or future, and payment of federal debt. There was an extension of the deferred period to 24 months from the original date for all loans. So some loans started out with a year deferment, but now for all loans, from the date you received that first approval for the loan and it was dispersed into your account, you have a deferment of 2 years. So you can use that time to consider whether you want to keep the loan or pay it back, or just you can start your payments early if you wish, but you certainly have the ability to defer those payments for that 2-year period automatically. There was a simplification of the affiliation requirement, and there was an additional path to meet the program size standards for some businesses. And we list the NAICS codes for those businesses there. So if you had some issue qualifying for an economic injury disaster loan based on your size standards, on September 8th, there were some changes there. So the program also, the loan program itself was very successful, but also had what we call targeted EIDL advances. And across the country, more than 465,000 businesses received those advances, and 372,000 received supplemental target advances. These were parts that did not have to be repaid back. These were an advance on the loan, and businesses received early on in the pandemic. The importance was getting funds out there to help businesses. So Congress authorized an advance, and then as the EIDL loan would be considered, even if that loan was denied for some reason later, those businesses were able to keep those advances. And we're going to give the overall numbers for the Virgin Islands later on. Next slide, please. And these are the other programs that were authorized by or during COVID-19. There were several bills that have been passed during that time to authorize several programs. So one big one, which many people heard about last year and applied and participated in, was the Paycheck Protection Program, otherwise known as PPP. This was a forgivable loan, similar to a grant. This was a loan that would be provided by your lender. And then if you used the funds for the purpose that it was intended, you could have that loan completely forgiven. As of now, we've had 74% of all PPP loans across the country have already been forgiven. We have a direct forgiveness portal where loans that were under $150,000 from a bank, if a bank wishes to use the portal, then they will allow you to go through and submit your documents through that portal for forgiveness. We have a lot of people participating in that, but many of the lenders, especially here in the Virgin Islands, were able to process their forgiveness applications in-house without the need of a portal. But if you have issues, of course, with that forgiveness, you should be working with your lender. But they've been doing a really good job of getting those forgiven here in Virgin Islands. We have a Community Navigator pilot program. 51 grant awards were announced. There was an entity in Puerto Rico that received that. We did not have anyone apply here in the Virgin Islands for the Community Navigator program that I'm aware of, but it has been a significant program across the country. Restaurant Revitalization Fund. This was a tough one because Congress approved this program, but funded it to the tune of $28 billion. And we knew right beginning that there were going to be a lot of restaurants applying for this, and those funds were going to be exhausted. So you may remember back in last spring, we were really heavily promoting those, and on all our webinars, we said, don't wait to apply that week when it is approved. Don't wait to apply that day. You should be applying within that first hour of it being approved and open and to accept applications. We did get a good number of restaurant owners who did get approved for that program, and that was essentially a grant that went straight to restaurant funds. 28.6 billion was distributed across restaurants all across the country, and we got a good piece of that here in the Virgin Islands. And then finally, the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, known as SVOG. This was a specific grant for venue operators to receive funds to help pay employees and just keep the business viable so that it can recover and return to normal operations after COVID-19. Venue operators were in a unique position where they could not find new ways to do their business. Of course, they can do some things online, but if their whole business is running a venue or some kind of event where a lot of people come together, certainly they couldn't do that for large periods during COVID-19. So this is a grant that went out, was open to all venue operators across the country. We also did have some people take advantage of that here in the Virgin Islands. And as I mentioned, we'll talk more about those numbers here in the Virgin Islands later on. But for now, what I'd like to do is turn it over to Lisa and have Lisa dive into a little bit more of the meat of the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, explain to you how that works, and probably more importantly, how it works if you're still trying to get an increase or you're having some trouble getting your loan approved and you want some reconsideration. She'll go in through all that, and she'll also talk about forgiveness with PPP. So Lisa, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Wayne, and welcome again to everyone, and thanks again to SBDC for having us on. We are talking about the EIDL loan, and for those who may have not taken advantage of it yet, this is the last remaining COVID-19 disaster loan that SBA is offering, and this too will expire on December 31st, 2021. Again, it's one loan per business. In SBA terms, we say one loan per tax ID, and we know that there has been good penetration for this loan, both in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. So, we have weekly webinars on a Wednesday at 11 to make sure that any other business or other businesses that want an increase in their loan or have been denied and feel that they're in a different position and want to have that loan reconsidered, and that they have every opportunity to do so. So the purpose is to meet financial obligations and operating expenses that could have been met if COVID-19 had not happened. This is not for businesses that were startup. You would have had to have been in operation prior to February 1, 2020 to even be eligible for this loan. The use of proceeds, working capital, normal operating expenses, and we have some bullet points under there which give examples of those, like rent or mortgage payments, utilities, continuation of healthcare benefits, payroll costs, sick leave, and then there were some expanded uses for the EIDL as well in terms of debt, regular federal debt and prepayment of debt that you owe maybe on a disaster loan or another federal, your IRS, things like that. The amount available, the formula is usually depending on your financials, your 2019 financials. They're looking at a maximum of 24 months of economic injury, and the maximum loan amount is $2 million. The interest rates are 3.75% if you're a small business or 2.75% if you're a nonprofit. And the maturity of this loan is over 30 years and no payments for 24 months, no matter when you took the loan. For collateral, their collateral is only required. Business collateral is required for loans over $25,000. If your loan is under 25 or up to 25, there is no collateral needed. For loans over $25,000, you're looking at business assets, real estate, machinery, equipment, fixture and furnishes, and only to the extent, let's just say, they're not going to take your whole business as collateral if your loan is going to be 30,000 and not 25. But if it is 2 million, then they're going to look at what specific collateral they can use that will cover the loan. Personal guarantee only for loans exceeding $200,000. And if you weren't sure that you needed it, but you took it just in case, and then your business is doing well, there are no prepayment penalties or fees should you decide to pay that loan back prior to the 30 years. Or if you decide to increase your payments because you're doing better than you had hoped, and you want to increase those payments, there's no penalty for prepayment. So the application resources, there is everything. This is a direct loan taken through SBA. So everything is on the SBA website, and that is sba.gov/idle. No matter what language you are doing, you can find frequently asked questions in English, in Spanish, and other additional languages. You can find all of the program updates, and then you have the entire application and portal. All of that is done online. The application steps, you want to make the disclosures which prove that you're an eligible entity and that you didn't already have one, that you are resident in the US, that you are a US citizen or a US permanent resident. You want to make sure that you're a small business, you're under 500 employees. You want to make sure that your business information is up to date. So if you have any owner that owns over 20% of it, then that person needs to be a signatory on the loan. Your legal name versus your trading name, if there is a difference, you want to make sure that that is there. One of the quirks in this is that for addresses, here in the VI, we have a lot of PO box addresses for our businesses because we don't get mail to our businesses. But for the purposes of SBA, you have to put the physical address of the building or the physical address of the business or the physical address as it was listed on your 2019 financial returns. And then a whole bunch of additional information. Then you review, you submit it. And that is the intake, and you will get a confirmation and a reference number. This is your IDLE ID number. Keep that handy for all further communications with SBA. You will also get, once that is confirmed, you will get an email from Disaster Customer Service requesting that you set up your own portal, which is your unique communicating vehicle with SBA for this loan. And you use your applicant, your email, you create a username, a password. It's a safe, you log in using an email and a password combination. You view the loan quote, and the loan quote is the maximum amount that you are eligible for given your 2019 financials. Even if you think you need less, we encourage you to take as much as they offer, and then you can always pay back that loan after. You click review and accept, and on you go. So we've had many loans that have been declined for many reasons. Here are the top 6 reasons and what you may be able to do about them if you can prove evidence to support a different decision. Remember that SBA is looking, this is a loan, this is something you have to pay back, not like the Paycheck Protection Program, which is, forgivable depending on how it was used. So the SBA is looking specifically to make sure that your business was viable prior to COVID and that you can afford to pay back a loan at 3.75% over 30 years. So if you, let's just say, put a PO box in your address, or if you, they cannot find. And here in the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, it's a little more digging for the national the national services. So you want to make sure that you have your business license uploaded, a current copy of it. You want to make sure that your articles of incorporation are something that you can upload to your portal, so that all of the documentation that proves that you are here, you're legitimate, and you are in business and operational prior to February 1, 2020 is there. Your credit reports. SBA looks at the credit history and assesses the ability to repay, not just for the business, but of every owner or whoever the primary owner is. They're going to look at your personal credit history. For up to $500,000, the minimum credit score that they're looking at is 570. For over 500,000, you're looking at a minimum credit score of 620. So if you had a lower credit score and it hasn't been updated on, FICO, Experian, TransUnion, any of those, and SBA runs a search, you can get denied if it is still showing a lower credit score. Now, if you've done something and you've cleared up your accounts and your credit is in a better position, you can take a picture of that where you're showing the date of your updated credit score, your name, and the updated credit score, and you can upload that to your portal and then advise SBA that they are free to run another credit score search because several things have been cleared up, let's just say. So that's one of the ways that you would counter that denial. If you are not a US citizen, you will need to upload the back and front very clear copies of your permanent resident card, your green card, front and back. If they cannot verify your status account, your bank account, then you're going to need your bank to provide a letter saying that this account is related to this business, it is in operation, and so make sure you have the routing numbers correct, make sure, and really anything that triggers. So go from your 2019 financials and whatever information was there, that's the information that you should use for application for reconsideration, because that's what they'll be comparing it to. And cannot, if your ownership status cannot be authenticated, usually that's where maybe there's a husband and wife team and only the husband signed or only the wife signed, and you need to get 2 signatories on the EIDL application. Anybody with ownership over 20% has to be a part of that signatory. Now, one of the most common reasons for EIDL declines, if you see a decline letter and you see unverifiable information, it's one of the most common ways of decline. What we recommend is that you call the 800-659-2955 number, or there's a new line, 833-853-5638. And you go through all of what you put in the application form. Do you have this as my email address? Do you have this as my bank account number? Do you have this as my business's legal name? And if there is a gap and they said, oh no, that was a 4 and it's supposed to be a 3, that is when you take that information, because you've verified what, can you see my business license? What exactly can you not verify? And then once you have that via phone, you put that in writing with the evidence to support that it is what it is. Okay, I should have mentioned one of the other reasons for denial is character reasons, including one that people don't think of. If you are delinquent with child support for over 60 days, SBA will decline the loan. So you're emailing pdcrecons@sba.gov. That's the easiest one to remember, pdcrecons, plural, at sba.gov. And what you're putting, you're making sure that you're putting your EIDL application number in the subject, and then you address directly what what the decline letter says. I was declined for unverifiable information. I called and found out that my US status is being questioned. I attach a copy of the back and front of my green card. Whatever you send to PDC Recons, we also recommend that you upload to your own portal, and also that it is that you keep that portal updated with your communication and the documentation that you send via disaster customer service or to PDC Recons, so that you have a permanent record of it there. Now, SBA has hundreds of thousands of EIDL loans, original loans, increased requests and reconsiderations, all ongoing. And so there's a tremendous backlog. There are also outside you know, we have to verify everyone's tax status with, you know, the local, here it will be VIBIR or in Puerto Rico, and then compare and have that match back to what IRS has. So that is taking anywhere, you know, basically up to 16 weeks. So if you have not heard for 4 weeks after you've submitted everything, that's the time to agitate, not every day, every 2 days. The general rule of thumb is that if you've heard nothing from SBA and you have something pending after 4 weeks, that's the time to call, to email, to have another nudge as to what's going on. And you have, you know, there's also a request reconsideration button now in your portal that anyone who was declined after the 24th of September is provided instructions in their decline letter to use that link in the portal. So there are options in terms of requesting reconsideration, and the reconsideration requests can continue past the December 31st, 2021 deadline. You're already in the system. If you have been declined, you can request that up to 6 months after the decline, as long as funds remain available. All right, so there is a 4506T, which is one of the standard documents required. And this is to make sure that SBA can process your income tax or your business's tax and verify that against the IRS records. The 4506T, there's a couple things to note about it. One is that you want to be filling out the most recent one, which is a March 2021 version. There's several versions floating around there. This is the most updated one. And that everything, if you look at, you know, step 1, step 2, step 3, you want to enter the name of your tax ID, the business name, and your address exactly as it is written on your 2019 federal tax returns or your local tax returns. And if it is a local tax return, make sure it's date stamped and that you're not, you know, you're not just filling out your 2019 tax forms to try and get this loan, because that's not, it won't be accepted. You want to make sure in step 4 that you enter your SBA loan application number and that you are, it's apples and apples. If you filed a 1040 versus 1120, you want to make sure that, because anything that is off, when they verify it, will come as an unverifiable response. So you just want to make sure that everything is accurate in terms of your original data entry. It really does delay the process every time there is a discrepancy in the information provided. And then you check the signatory attest box. And again, every owner or president, secretary, partner, managing member who has over 20% has to sign that as well. So these are some of the EIDL application reference emails. If, you know, the main line is the 800-659-2955. And then, you know, but if you have general questions regarding the disaster loans, you're sending it to disastercustomerservice@sba.gov. If you want general information about the targeted advance, and both the targeted advance and the supplemental advance, that is only by invitation from SBA if you have an existing EIDL loan. So that's the only time that you would use that, is if you've been invited by SBA to apply for a targeted advance. For re-evaluation, if you've been declined for a targeted advance and you want to get it re-evaluated, you have a targeted advance re-evaluation at sba.gov. If you've already got a COVID loan and you want to request an increase, remember, it's not a brand new number. It's the exact same, your original loan, and you can send an email to COVID EIDL increase requests at sba.gov. There is also a button on your portal to request that increase. If the funding, you're seeing funded and you don't see the money in your account after like 10 working days, you may want to, you know, if there's bank rejected funds and so on, that is one of the emails, but that's only for the COVID EIDL bank returns. And then the PDC recons at sba.gov, that is for, again, up to 6 months after decline. If you have evidence to support SBA looking at a loan for you or an increase for you, that's the email that you're sending it to, pdc.reconsideration@sba.gov, or the shortened version, pdcrecons@sba.gov. So these are all helpful references, and always have your EIDL application on hand. So now we're looking at the PPP forgiveness updates. And as Wayne talked about in the highlights, we have, I think, over 74% of all PPP loans nationwide have been submitted for forgiveness, with 72% forgiven. These were some of the changes that came with it. So if you took a PPP loan back in 2020, you want to make sure that, that loan should have been submitted for forgiveness. Otherwise, you would be, you should be paying money on that if you didn't ask for forgiveness for it within the time frame. And then these are some of the other updates: that the borrowers must apply for forgiveness through your lender for PPP directly. EIDL is done directly through SBA, but all PPP was done through lenders. Advances are no longer deducted. Make sure that you keep all of your records for 3 years at least, in case you get audited, or in case tax, for tax purposes, that you want to have that all done. All right, the covered period, we spoke about the covered period for the PPP loan. If you want to be eligible for full forgiveness, it began on the date the loan was originally disbursed. Disbursed means that's the day the money hit your account, and it ends on a date selected by the borrower that was at least 8 weeks following the date of the loan, the date of disbursement, and not more than 24 weeks after the date of disbursement. And there's an example here in terms of that, but basically one of the upgrades was that a borrower can choose how many weeks they want to use the PPP loan in, and that was used more widely in 2021 than it was in 2020. Some of the eligible payroll costs that you could have had fully forgiven for the PPP loan was salary, wages, tips, commission, sick leave, vacation leave, allowances for separation or dismissal, employee benefits, the employer's payment for employee benefits, state and local taxes, and independent contractors or sole proprietors were also allowed to apply for their own PPP, not as an employee of. You could not file for independent contractors or 1099 contractors under an employer's PPP, but they could file for themselves. And they have similar compensation and wage payroll costs. If you got a PPP loan and you spent less than 60% in payroll costs, then the amount of your loan forgiveness, the threshold for your loan forgiveness, will be 1% of that. So if you you obtain the maximum amount that qualifies for forgiveness by dividing the dollar amount spent in payroll costs by 0.60 or 60%. And again, this is just an example for math, and I believe that VI SBDC will be sending out a PDF of this whole presentation so that you can review this information at your, at a slower pace, read a couple things more about it, contact us if you have any further questions, and so on. The eligible non-payroll costs were also expanded with the, as the case, this in 2021. And before it was just mortgage payments, rent obligations, and utility payments. And then it was expanded to cover operations expenditures like business software or cloud computing services, property damage costs. Only that really didn't apply to Puerto Rico or the US Virgin Islands. That was if you were in the one of the states that had vandalism or shooting due to public disturbances that occurred during 2020. Supplier costs for non-perishable goods like your regular refilling inventory and things like that. And with regards to perishable goods, and specifically to help the restaurants, if we know that food supply, the supply chain for food was a little iffy at the time. So wherever you needed to get supplies for perishable goods, you could have added that to your use for PPP loans. Again, up to a maximum of 40% because it was 60% for payroll to keep people working during COVID, or to at least keep them, give them a salary option while COVID was going on. And then worker protection expenditures, PPE, and things like that, all of the plexiglass and everything else that our businesses had to put into place to protect workers and customers from COVID-19. All right, here's where I'm going to turn it back over to Wayne to talk about the, how US Virgin Islands businesses participated in all of the COVID-19 funding programs. Over to you, Wayne.
All right, thank you very much, Lisa. Good job. Yeah, as I mentioned early on, I gave the overall numbers for these COVID-19 programs at SBA around the country, but I'd like to share how they've impacted the Virgin Islands specifically. So first with PPP, we had almost 3,500 loans, 3,430 loans for a value of $202,514,000. Now it's important to remember a couple of things. One, these were all forgivable loans. These were not loans that needed to be paid back as long as they were used in the intention that they were, which was to keep people on the payroll. So that's a significant number of loans. Considering the size of our territory, the number of businesses we had a very large number of loans, especially when you compare that to the other states or Puerto Rico and others, and adjust for size. We had a great number of businesses take advantage of that. And that really speaks to the lenders here in the territory who worked day and night and weekends to learn a program that did not exist before the pandemic, get ramped up, get the money out to their clients, and then now process all these forgiveness requests. So they've been doing a fantastic job. 95% of the PPP loans were fulfilled by lenders here in the territory. So they did a fantastic job, and that program is winding down as we go through the forgiveness. But it's had a very positive, I believe, impact here in the Virgin Islands. Next is economic injury disaster loans. We've had 1,833 as of this month businesses that have taken out an economic injury disaster loan. The dollar value of those is a little over 121 million. These are loans that must be repaid back, but as we've shared with you before, the terms of these loans are fantastic. A 2-year deferment, very low interest rates. It's also available for nonprofits. You can also, many businesses received PPP loan and an EIDL loan. You cannot receive more than one, as I mentioned. So that number represents the number of businesses here in the territory that have received an economic injury disaster loan, that's also a very large number. That's a big number considering the number of businesses we have here in the territory. In fact, when you control for population and the number of businesses and compare that to any other state or territory in the country, we had greater penetration and greater use of the economic injury disaster loan by Virgin Islanders and Virgin Island businesses than any other state or territory out there. So very proud of the work that's been done to get the word out. Lisa has done a great job marketing these programs. We've got a lot of people taking advantage of those. As I mentioned before, there was an advance aspect to the EIDL loans. We had 208 that took advantage of the targeted EIDL advance, and then another 116 took advantage of the supplemental advance for a little over $2 million when you add those together. That's just another aspect of the program that a lot of people here in the Virgin Islands took advantage of. With Restaurant Revitalization Fund, as I mentioned, that was a very small pool of funds when you consider the number of restaurants in the country. We did have 28 restaurants here in the Virgin Islands representing all 3 islands that were able to get in for those funds and received just shy of $6 million. And again, that was a grant. That was not a loan that had to be repaid. So those were funds that went out to the hardest hit restaurants here in the territory and helped keep them afloat and going during a very tough period. The funds were depleted pretty quickly, as I mentioned. Congress has not reauthorized those funds. I'm not sure they will, but if they do, we have Virgin Islanders in the queue waiting to be approved for those. It'd be nice if they did get them approved, but it's been quite a while and they have not been, so I don't anticipate that they will be. And then finally, shuttered venue operators grants. We do not have many large venue operators here in the Virgin Islands, but we did have some, and we had 2 that applied and received approval for those grants and have received between the 2 a total of $227,851 in form of a grant to help keep their operations going and their doors open as we hopefully wind down the worst effects of COVID-19 on our economy. Next slide, please. So that's it for our presentation. Going forward, we are here permanently. I'm on St. Croix, Lisa's on St. Thomas. We are your SBA representatives here in the territory. You can always reach us at the information there. Our cell phones are good, but I always encourage you to use our emails. It creates a lot easier record of us to be able to respond to. If we need to introduce you or loop in someone else to help answer a question or provide assistance, we can do that far easier through an email than we can if you leave a message on our cell phone. But that's our contact information there. We also we're part of the Virgin Islands, or it's the Puerto Rico Virgin Islands District Office of SBA. And our main office is in Puerto Rico. You can reach that main office up there at those numbers. But for much of your assistance, you should be reaching out to our technical service providers, which are the Small Business Development Center and SCORE. SBDC has locations on both St. Thomas and St. Croix. They have larger staffs. These are people who are paid to provide technical support to business owners and really do a deep dive on their business plan. They can help assist with other funding. But they're also very knowledgeable on SBA programs and certainly COVID-19 programs. We keep them briefed on the changes and updates to those programs, so they can certainly help you with applications or other questions you have. SCORE is also another resource, provides coaching and mentoring here to Virgin Island members. They are affiliated with the SCORE chapter in Florida. So you have a lot of mentors in Florida who have a wide variety of expertise and industries that they're knowledgeable in. And they can provide you direct assistance and coaching and mentorship as you try to grow your business during this time. So that's it for our presentation. We will now open it up to any questions you have. You can either come up, I think you can come off mute in this, I can't remember, but I know you can put a question in chat. If you have a question in chat, just type it in there. We'll take a look at it. We'll answer it that way. And you can also, I think, come off mute and ask your question.
So Wayne, there are no questions in chat. So we do invite you, you have to ask a question, or if you want to ask a question, if it's something specific to your application and you prefer not to ask it on air, then we can be reached. We can both put our email addresses in the chat. And I know that you'll be also getting that information after the presentation from VISBDC.
Okay, so I'll jump in here while we wait for questions. We just want to remind participants to visit our website at www.visbdc.org to register for upcoming webinars. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google My Business, or download the VISBDC app from the Apple or Google Play Store for your personal device. Upcoming webinars this afternoon, we have the Grow with Google USVI, Launch Your Business with Customer Focused Marketing. That starts at 2 p.m. We will have our SBA team back next Tuesday, and they will be presenting marketing research utilizing the Dynamic Small Business Tool, and that will be on November 30th at 11 a.m. We have them back on December 9th, and they will be telling us how to prepare for the next disaster, also at 11 a.m. And finally, for the end of the year, we have a customer service webinar, and it's focusing on the importance of soft skills in the USVI, and that will be at 10 a.m. So go ahead, check out our website, register for more upcoming webinars. And SBA team, I see we have something in the chat, so I'll hand it back over to you so you can go ahead.
All right, thank you. I think the chat is just us putting in our emails, Sharika.
Okay, so I guess it's okay to wrap it up. We don't have any questions. They have your contact information. Thank you so much for your time, and see you next Tuesday. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone on the call. Bye-bye.
All right, have a great Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.